When was the last time you read a programming book? In my case, the last time I read a programming book was like 1 month or 2 months ago. And one question that I've gotten over this past couple of weeks is people asking me, is it worth learning how to code using a book? And here's my 2 cents about it. To answer the question, I would have said yes, it is worth it, but then the nuance is that it depends on you. It depends on the type of learner that you are. So we all are not the same when it comes to the way that we learn things and how best we absorb knowledge through the medium that we choose to learn from. So some people are so good at learning from books, whilst others prefer other methods like watching videos or hearing people talk about the topic and several other ways that people learn. So the first thing that I would say is that whether it is worth learning how to code using a textbook or a book for that matter, it totally depends on you, the individual, and you need to figure out if learning by reading is a way that helps you as an individual. So one thing that I am an advocate for is really figuring out what works best for you in almost anything at all, and not just learning to code alone. So don't just copy and paste what other people are saying. So you watch this video and I say, yes, learning to code with by reading a book is like the best thing that will ever happen to you, and just follow suit and go and copy that or start doing it because somebody said it. No, you have to experiment with all the various means, all the various media, or anything that is available to you. Try and experiment with it and see what gives you the most result. So if you're here to figure out which way works best for you when it comes to learning, then this is me advising you that it is time for you to start experimenting. And when you're experimenting, you should also pay attention to the outcome or the results that you get. So between reading from the books and also watching the videos or any other means that you've been using to learn over the past few years, which of them has given you the best outcome? If you haven't taken your time to pay attention to the outcome, then it is time for you to start looking into that. Personally, I love reading and I enjoy reading textbooks anytime, any day. And nowadays, reading isn't even just about having a hard copy book. I don't remember the last time I bought a hard copy book. And even when it comes to programming, I haven't ever bought any hard copy programming book. So most of the time I use soft copies and I love to read them. There are several platforms out there that you can download some of these from. So it's totally up to you. If you think that it is good for you in terms of you do well when it comes to reading, then go for it. The caveat with reading books or using books to learn how to code is the fact that most books are not updated often. So it takes a long time for books to be updated. Unlike, say, online articles or blog posts that people have written, or even the documentation about the programming language or technology you're learning, textbooks or books in general takes a while. They have to go through a lot of processes before they are finally updated. So because of this reason, you do not want to fully rely on textbooks or on books when you're learning new technologies, especially if you're learning a technology that is in active development, that new features are being added or changes are being made every now and then. For instance, if you pick a book on technology like React.js, that's a book that was written, say, in the past 2 years, you would realize that majority of the things that you would learn there would be irrelevant now because a lot of changes have taken place. But the good thing I like about books is that some books really focus on the basics or the fundamentals. So if you really want to understand the fundamentals of things and how they've evolved over time, then sometimes some of these books are like the best resources for you. But personally, I do not see a difference between using the books and using any of the online resources, because a book essentially is an author who is well versed in the topic deciding to put something together to guide you on the path to understanding that concept or technology that you have chosen, and they have put them all together into one media that they are sharing with you. Like that is just a means by which they are delivering that content to you. So in the same way, if an author writes in a blog post, in a documentation, it's almost the same thing. So for as long as there is a reading medium, the only difference you find out is that most books are written by well-known experts, right? Like most of the books that are out there are written by people who are thought of as experts in a field. But when it comes to blog posts and the likes, almost anyone at all can write it and publish it. So that is what makes books unique sometimes. And for that reason, I choose books when I really want to delve deep into a particular concept and also hear about an expert's opinion on something. But if you're learning, you're struggling to begin your journey in the first place, we are struggling to understand some of the concepts. Sometimes reading or learning from an expert isn't the best choice because they seem far away from you and they cannot condense the knowledge in a way that you will easily appreciate. So it also makes sense sometimes to consume knowledge from people who are very close to you in terms of the journey, people who just understood it. They were struggling just like you, and over time they've understood what they are learning. So beginners teaching beginners isn't a bad thing. If you see a blog post that is coming from somebody who isn't really advanced, for as long as the person or that write-up helps you understand the concept, that is what you are looking for. But eventually you would want to also deepen your understanding of the concept, and this is where you begin to consume knowledge from experts or from the actual documentation on that technology, and that is where sometimes the books also helps a lot. So in summary, if I am to answer the question, is it worth using a book to learn how to code or not? My answer would be yes, it is worth using a book to learn how to code, but you have to be the type of person that loves reading. But also, this is not just like any other subject. This is not biology where you just read and memorize things. You would need to practice the code. As soon as I said biology, read and memorize, I remember my anatomy class where we needed to memorize a lot of things. So God, like the parts of the body, there is no understanding to it and there is no way you can practice it. You just have to memorize it. If I say I point to you any part of the body, you need to remember, and that was all it was. Anyway, forget about that. That was just in passing. So the point is that for programming or learning to code, you have to practice as much as possible. And the last thing I would say is you have to be curious when you are learning anything, whichever resource, even if it is a video or an article or a book. Be curious, because the author or the person creating that content may mention something, some concepts may not be covered in depth in that particular resource. So you should be able to pick that up and learn it from other resources as well. And that is how you become excellent at some of these things. I also really want to hear what you think about using books to learn how to code. What has your experience been like? Have you used a book to learn programming before? And when was the last time you actually read a programming book? Please go ahead and drop it in the comments. I would love to hear what your experience are, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye bye.